Shvi. Wait, please. Hold on, 1 minute.
Well, I can't stop my recording now. It'll just
Stop the recording.
Stop the presses. Uh-oh. You just disappeared.
Okay. Perek Shavi. Okay. The last perek we discussed things that help us do tshuva, motivate us to do tshuva. But now we're talking about things that are mafsid us from doing tshuva, ma'akev us from doing tshuva. Certain things.
That stop us from doing tshuva? Sorry.
Right. They make it difficult. So let's see. There are many. Earlier, he said there are 7 things that you have to know in order to do tshuva. And if you don't know it, you can't do tshuva. Okay, we discussed that. But another thing that is ma'akev tshuva, Aveira. When a person, we'll see what this means. He will expound on it. A person's machlit to do the Aveira, kolaimar, in other words. He does it regularly. He doesn't leave it. In other words, it's an Aveira that he's accepted. It's okay to do type of thing. Why? It becomes, that's what Chazal say. If you didn't have a Shana boy, it becomes keheter. It becomes in your mind like it's an okay thing to do. So like maybe intellectually, it says in the Torah it's wrong, but emotionally and whatever, it's fine. It's a fine thing to do. You do it. You've been doing it for a while, and it's not as keheter. Now, if it's not as v'nidra she'ein aveira klal, and it appears to you that it's okay to do that, such a thing, it's hard to do tshuva because you don't really feel you're doing something wrong. It's okay. Let's take an example. What could be an example? If you grow up in what's called, let's say, what they call a modern Orthodox.
Ooh, shots fired.
Let's say, right? So let's say like mixed swimming is an acceptable thing. It's fine. So then if someone, does that and lives that lifestyle, how's he going to do tshuva? What's he doing tshuva on? He thinks it's fine. It's okay. Okay, there's some fanatics maybe, or maybe he'll come across it somewhere, but to him, it's not an Aveira. So if you have to, and it could be anything personally to you, any Aveira you do, anything you do. You don't say Kriya Shema Bismana. Okay, is that a safer thing, right? You don't say you get up late. You say Kriya Shema, but either in the calendar it says it has to be said by a certain time, right? But it's something that you continuously miss, and so it's fine. It's very hard to do tshuva on that. You don't have.
I think it might be something a little bit different between an asay and a lo ta'aseh. It's like you're not doing an asay. It's like I don't think that becomes matir in your eyes versus something like eating treif, where the guilt factor goes away. I think there's a much difference between asay and lo ta'aseh here.
There should be a guilt factor when you miss a mitzvah. Also, there's a story. Okay, Rav Shach is coming to Panovich. He lived across the street. He's coming to the Beis Medrash. He meets one of his talmidim walking down the stairs with this tefillin in his hand. Okay, he did the math. Right? He did the math. The guy was on the way to shul, and it was after Zman Kriya Shema. And he tells him, he says, when I was a bacher in Europe, so he said he slept in a room that was total darkness. And he says, once in my whole life, that day, I woke up late and I missed the first Mana Krishna. He didn't miss the second one. He missed the first Mana Krishna. He said, my whole day, I couldn't come to grips with the fact that I missed it. Okay? There was a second time when he was like 102, and for some reason again he missed the first Mane Krishna. So for him, because it was the first time, like you're saying, he was totally remorseful. The Harata was there, everything was right there. But someone who, and there's plenty of Shiva guys like that. There's plenty of Shiva guys that mitzvah doesn't, it's okay, well, I don't know what the rationalization is, but it's very hard to do tshuva. You need a whole like mindset change. Because in your mindset, I davened, I put on tefillin and I davened and I'm fine. So that's a ma'akev for tshuva. He's just saying that's a ma'akev. That's a ma'akev of tshuva. When you what was his words? Yeah, go ahead.
How do we deal with that when on a daf level? Like you're saying, like modern Orthodox and whatever. So like according to that Ada and your leaders there are not kind of pushing to you that it's something that's incorrect. So how would you even come to that space where, Kal v'chomer on an Ada level?
Right. It's a problem. That's why it's in this paragraph, in this parak of ma'akev tshuva. Because it's like how do you take that step? Something has to happen to you to change, to change that status quo. And it's not like Heather.
But how can you change that status quo of something you're not even
so,
being told?
So one of the things is it could happen because you went to a shiur. There was a shiur in the community, and the Rav happened to refer to it and bring it up. And then say, oh, 1 minute. Well, what is that all about? What do you mean? I always did it. When I was in David, I heard that regularly. Rabbi, you can't be wrong. I've always done it.
Right, exactly.
Everybody does it. So it could be from an outside type of thing. You can happen to be in a shiur. Someone took you to a shiur. Someone came to the community and spoke. You could be learning halacha. You decided to open up and learn on your own Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I don't know. And you come across the halacha and you have a certain amount of honesty and that could awaken you to say, 1 minute, I got to challenge my beliefs. Something here doesn't make sense. If this is true, how could it be that that everybody does? And it takes a certain amount of courage to make that change. But again, so that's was my first good. But in our personal lives, that we do open up Sivan and we do learn. It was one of the things that he talked about earlier. But it's ma'akev tshuva. It is ma'akev tshuva. That's number one that he talks about here. Ukvar Nemar, he continues. No, down here on the bottom. He says that even the truth is, right? So the first thing is that it's something that you do regularly. It becomes nasa keheter. In one case, in the case of the community, you don't even know it's wrong, perhaps. In the case of Kriyishma, you do know it's wrong. You're in a yeshiva, there's a sign on the shul. Every shul has, Zman Seif, Zman Kriyishma. But it's become nasa keheter to you. It doesn't talk to you. This is ignored. You always daven late. Okay. He says, he says, the truth is that even a small Aveira, if you do it regularly, it becomes a big Aveira. As it says, I don't know where it says that, but it seems to be a quote, that even Aveira, the small Aveira doesn't stay small if it's done regularly. Seems like it's the same. That and Aveira, even a big Aveira, doesn't stay big if you do tshuva on the two sides of the spectrum.
Right, but how do we deal with that if different groups have a different definition of what halacha is? It just seems like, okay, so if you're part of this Hasidic group, you do opinions, and look, I just picked up a Shulchan Aruch and it said this, and like, hang on a second, but it's the same kind of question, because it's going back to the previous Sha'arim we were talking about. It's like, well, how do we know if it's the Yetzer Hara telling us to do X, or if it's, how are we supposed to acknowledge where these changes come from when our entire communities are doing it?
The big question. It's a big question. It takes a certain amount of look. There are certain things that you are very clearly are chumras, minhagim, that certain communities, like it's in Hasidic communities, talk about payas, whatever, right? Having long payas. In the Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't say you need long payas, right? And that's the bottom line for us. The Shulchan Aruch is the bottom line. In the Zohar, it might refer to it, and there's reasons for it. And okay, so that community took that upon themselves. You have to check yourself against the halacha. You have to open up. There's halachas for it. You know what I mean? There are halachas for it. And you have to check yourself against that. So he says, when someone does an Aveira regularly, Marishu Boises the Varalikim. Okay, so here we're not talking about the first example where you don't even know. But you really know, right? You went to yeshiva, you know. He says, so this that you constantly do it. It's an expression that it's not important to you. I don't care. It's sort of like a hefkerut. And as he's saying, besides the Aveira itself that you're doing, that you may want to categorize as a lesser of Aveira, but inherent in someone who ignores it and ignores the halacha is that he's now put himself into a category of someone who's Dvar Hashem Boza. That he's, how do you translate Boza? He's Mevaza.
Holds lightly.
He what?
Holds lightly.
Okay. And that is considered a very serious thing. So even if the Aveira for itself, but by doing this, I'm thinking the Shari Tshuva brings, there's a lot of parallels in Shari Tshuva and this Shara Tshuva, for good reason, I guess, because they're both talking about the same thing. He also says, one of the klolas, well, maybe it's the Mishnah, maybe it's the time in Shmirsa, in Sefer Time, when he talks about someone who speaks Lashon Hara freely. One of the clauses is Ora Asher Loi Heikim Lases Kol HaTorah. So he says it's like a blanket over specific hours, or you do this or you do that. Then there's one that says you didn't accept upon yourself all the laws of the Torah. So he says someone who flaunts a specific Aveira, so he falls into that category. Oh, I know what the Shari Tshuva said. That's one thing. I didn't make that up. That makes it much more serious. You put yourself into a klala because besides the Aveira itself, you're disregarding. But the Shari Tshuva says another thing. He says when a person, so to speak, knowingly chooses not to do any specific mitzvah Aveira, then he's thrown the yoke of the Torah off him. It's as if he's saying, I decide which one I do, which I don't. Even if it's only one small and he's doing everything. But Hashem commanded us to do everything. The minute you become the decider of which Aveira, this one I don't have to do. This one's not important. Then for greater purposes, you've thrown everything off. Okay, the other ones you feel are important. So you're making the decisions. That's not called being makabel ol malchus shamayim. Ol malchus shamayim means I don't make the decisions. Hashem wrote the Torah. He made the decisions, and I'm bound to everything in the Torah. The minute I can make a choice and say this yes and this no, even if it's only one thing, then I've already thrown off the ol malchus shamayim, and that makes the Aveira much more serious. Okay, so we have over here what he's saying, that when you choose, when there's an Aveira that you ignore, or mitzvah, you don't fulfill it, it's Dvar Hashem Boza, and that makes it a much more serious Aveira. When we tam noisav hadavar, it's another reason. When you do an Aveira constantly, Even if it's a small, very not a very it inherently, so the first thing is the Aveira didn't change, but your actions put you in a different category. In this one, the Aveira itself, a small Aveira becomes a big Aveira. While if it's even a big Aveira, if you do tshuva va'oizevasa, and you stop doing it out of Yiras Hashem, Aveira shrinks until it's totally erased from your book of Aveira, and you're purified from it. He says, go for this, and you do an Aveira again and again. He makes it a big Aveira, and he brings a mashal that Shaichuv also brings. When you take a strand of silk from the cocoon, it's nothing. You could tear it easily. But when you take it and you double and triple and fourple it and quadruple it, and you keep on doing that, it becomes a very strong rope. Even though its coming, its source is a very weak thing. But when you double it and triple it, then you constantly, it becomes a very strong rope. Right? Where does it come initially? From the saliva of the silkworm. See the opposite. They have a very strong rope. I have a rope that they used to tie the boats when it docks. If you use it a lot, it starts wearing out until it tears. So the same thing. He says similarly, this mashal is the Aveiros. When you have a small Aveira, it's not a big Aveira, but you do it regularly, it's as if you're doubling and tripling the Aveira, and the Aveira itself now is a big Aveira, just like the silk strand that became a strong rope. And the same thing is true, but if you did big Aveiros, but you do tshuva on them. So every time you do tshuva, the tshuva weakens it and frays it, like the rope. So when you leave it, tshuva. And therefore, him to a pasuk is Averis lechevel. The pasuk Navi. Here's Averis to a rope. You're pulling the Aveira. Says the Piskei Lev on the bottom, explains the pasuk. Hoi, oi lehem, lebale Aveira. Woe to those people who do Aveiros. Moishken oven bechavle hashav hamoishken alatzman. They bring upon themselves as havoinas the Aveiros bechutim dakim bechalosh. They bring upon themselves with weak strands. Shekamat ein ber mamash kloim kshem askila machta. In other words, when they start doing the Aveira shem hem ktanis v'chal, it's the small Aveiros, and they allow themselves to do it, even though it's something so small. But after are over Alim, if they did it many times, they become big, serious. Just like the rope, the rope that used to pull the wagons. How did it become so strong? Because you twined many strands, it becomes a very strong rope. And that's emotional. Now, I'm not sure how this follows from what he started off saying, that the Dover Makav of Tshuva is that it becomes a constant thing and then it's not like a head there. It just sounds like here he's just pointing out also that when another result of constantly doing an Aveira, it's a small Aveira, is that both Aveira itself becomes a big Aveira, and number two, the mindset of choosing not to do the Aveira, of ignoring, being mavaz and Aveira, puts you into a very serious category of people. He continues and he says, besides that, I feel Aveira katana, even a small Aveira, even if you don't do it publicly, It's still considered a very big Aveira and revealed in very commercial Nemar. Don't focus on the small Aveira that you did on the size of the Aveira. And the focus on the greatness of Hashem who commanded you not to do it. So even if the Aveira is little, but law, the Melech Malchai Amlochim told you not to do it, and you're going against his word, that makes it big. That makes it big, even if it's a little, a little thing. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, focus on who's telling you not to do it. Al tismach, al shem bnei yodam akimus Rabbi atzpunecha, and don't be happy that there are people who don't know what's going on in your thoughts. Rather, you should be his abel al shabori kented as mashin famastir. Hashem, you should mourn because Hashem knows what you're hiding. Through Mashkafah Masach and Glurim, and he sees both your revealed and hidden actions. And he's going to remember it even more than you. You might forget that you did it. But it's all written down like we say. As we say in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur over there, right? Nothing's forgotten. You'll forget. You'll look away from them. Again, the Navi says, it's written in front of me. The sins of Yehuda are written with a metal writing instrument. That's B'tzipor and Shomer. All right, let's stop here. I see it goes on for a while. Okay, so this is one of the Mafsidei Tshuva. Is doing it regularly. It becomes Nasa Keheter, and he now expounds on that. Even if it's a small affair, you have to realize that's a very serious thing. And concentrating on that maybe also helps you break it. Right? And you said, how do you change it? If I take into myself this idea that in a very small Aveira that's many times, it's a big Aveira, and who am I transgressing against? And what does it express? My relationship to Hashem and to his mitzvahs, that could be something that could help you break your addiction, so to speak, your not just like a heter. Okay.
See you tomorrow.